China poses a serious threat against the United States. And according to Pentagon officials, that this is critical and the United States needs to be on high alert. But why? Why does China pose a serious threat against the United States today? And why are we just now hearing about it? Well, it's all because of the tariff fight. What China has done just recently is they are now telling the United States and the rest of the world that we are going to restrict our rare earth minerals to the rest of the world. It's Chinese property and we want to use it. Now, the United States hit back to China and said, okay, that's fine, but we are also going to impose a 100% additional tariff on you. Guess what? China doesn't like it. Look at this. It says, China warns U.S. of countermeasures if Trump doesn't walk back 100% tariff threat. Now, most people think this is just a tariff war. This is just a trade war, nothing more. But I want you to look at this picture right here. In this picture, you see all these cranes right here and over here. This is extremely important. Okay? Now, this is out of China. But do you know that the United States uses Chinese technology in some of our cranes in places like Orange County, even on the East Coast? They're using Chinese software, which, according to Congress just last year, said China could easily shut this down. They could shut down our shipping. That would be devastating. So when China comes out and says that they are warning the United States of countermeasures if Trump doesn't walk back these 100% tariffs, that's concerning. But look at this as well. It says China shows no sign of backing down while issuing call for U.S. to withdraw tariff threat. President Trump just said that don't worry about China. It will be okay because China doesn't want a depression, and neither does the United States. Well, here's the thing. China does not seem like they're going to back down. They seem like they're going to put up a fight to ensure that they are not seeing their imports hit with a 100% tariff. But look at this. Okay? It's these things, these stories that are concerning. It says China vows to retaliate if Trump makes good on 100% tariff threat. Well, look at this story as well. It says China is hacking America's critical infrastructure, according to the former NSA and retired General Tim Howe. Now, he just did a full video over there on 60 Minutes. Okay, great little video. If you want to watch it, go watch it. But I want to read you some of what he said. Look at this right here. Okay. Goes on to say, until recently, Tim Howe was among America's top spy masters. The four-star general spent 33 years in Air Force intelligence and rose to lead America's largest and most advanced intelligence agency. Howe was also in charge of defending America from computer threats. In his first television interview since retirement, General Howe is here to warn that China has hacked into U.S. computer networks to an astonishing degree, and he believes he knows why. The surprise, Tim Howe told us, is that China is targeting not just the U.S. military and industry, but also Americans in their homes. Okay, shocking. They are targeting Americans in their homes. Listen to what else he had to say. Goes on to say, General Tim Howe, I think initially we were surprised that China would target every American with these capabilities. That goes against every norm of international law. That certainly goes against how the United States military would approach targeting in a crisis or a conflict. That the fact that they would go after basic services as part of their effort that they have identified as unrestricted warfare is unconscionable. Okay. Well, the interviewer asked, what did they target? This is what General Tim Howe had to say. He goes on to say, they targeted water. They targeted electrical power infrastructure, transportation, are examples of the types of things that were targeted, and in many cases, they're vulnerable. Okay. And we learned that this was something that was going on during during a critical time, that we learned this was happening during the pandemic. When President Trump originally proposed these tariffs on the rest of the world and China as well, China was reportedly in the mix of some of these attacks on the United States, on some of our cell towers, on some of our power grids, that there are reports that there was Chinese fingerprints behind it. Look at this. When the interviewer asked General Tim Howe, is China preparing for war? Okay, that's what he asked. This is what he said. He says, there was no other reason to target those systems. There's no advantage to be gained economically. There was no foreign intelligence collection value. The only value would be for us, or for use in a crisis or a conflict. Here's the thing. China has already embedded themselves into our telecommunications, into our transportation systems, into our water supply, everything. And there have been confirmation, there has been over the past several years, and some of which we've been able to kick China out, kick out these hackers. And again, even though we're saying China, according to reports, it's China, it's Iran, it's Russia, right? These are the main three. But the key here is who's funding all this? Look at this as well. Here's another story a lot of people missed. How China could use U.S. farmland to attack America. I want to read you this, but then explain what is even more concerning. It says Chinese entities have been acquiring land in key locations near U.S. military bases, sparking national security concerns about possible spying or even a potential attack. Now, there's a lot of Chinese farmland. It's U.S. farmland owned by Chinese entities. It's here in the United States, and some of it is close to military bases, to certain silos. Again, I don't want to alarm you, but the concern here is, what if China decides to use their land as a way to attack the United States? Obviously, that's concerning. But some say a bigger concern may be taking their farmland and growing whatever crops and harvesting and doing all that, but yet not using it here in the United States. They grow it here in the United States, they harvest it here in the United States, but yet they ship it all back to China. Think about that for a second. Let me keep reading this article. It says right here, this fear is why in 2023, North Dakota politicians blocked a Chinese company from building a corn mill near an Air Force base in Grand Forks. At the time, the company denied it would use the mill to spy or harm the U.S. It says China isn't the only nation buying American farmland. According to the most recent data available from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, non-Americans own about 45 million acres, or about 3.5% of agriculture land in the U.S. That's up from 70% from a decade ago. Canadians own about a third of that, while Chinese nationals own just 1% at 277,000 acres. Okay. Goes on to say it may be a small percentage, but it is enough to grab the attention of politicians. Yeah, more than enough. Also goes on to state there are no federal laws stopping foreigners from buying Americans' farmland, but 29 states now limit it or ban it altogether. Okay. So what's the concern right now? Well, the concern is that the United States and China look like we are headed towards a trade war. This trade war is only intensifying. What we saw back in April was the start. And I said this from the beginning, that this was just the start. There's no way China accepts a 30% tariff on all their exports into the United States. There's no way. But yet it looks like President Trump has said, you know what? Yeah, they accepted it. They agreed. They're good with it. No, China's not good with it. They made it very clear they are not accepting of the fact that they have to, their goods are seeing a 30% tax or tariff, if you will. That's why some experts believe this is only the start of this war. The United States and China, many people believe that we are headed towards a war. We won't see our militaries go at each other, but we will head towards a war. It likely will be a trade war, but some say it could actually escalate into something greater. So, we'll see what happens in the very near future, but as of today, that is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.